What is up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of Not A24, the podcast that takes a look at movies outside of the A24 library, literally 24 minutes at a time. I'm Ethan Simi.
And I'm Ben Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we face a reckoning, and we are speaking about the newest Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1.
Part 1. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. Ben, the road to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 ends here, brother. We did it. We
Finally
made it to the end of the road. The last 6 weeks of our lives were dedicated to this movie, to this franchise, and to one man, truly, in Tom Cruise. How the fuck do you feel? Because I am buzzing right now.
I'm very excited that we are here. It's been super fun to like recap all the old movies, to give my love to Mission Impossible 3 and Ghost Protocol, shout out from the rooftops. I'm excited that we were finally here. We were supposed to be here, like 2 years ago, technically, just forever ago. So it worked out perfect for us. I'm excited to talk about this. I'm like an hour and a half removed from the movie. You're like half an hour removed from your second viewing. So yeah, we're ready to go.
Absolutely. We're fired up. So this is a very special episode of the podcast because we are normally a podcast that talks about A24 films, and we do so outside of this 24-minute limit. This is a Patreon podcast. It will be wide. We are going to send it out to everybody because we want to know everybody's thoughts on Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's one of the biggest movies of the summer, so we feel like this is a conversation that should be shared. So as we go through this, we will see if we stick to the 24 minutes or not. We haven't talked, literally, like I texted you, I was like, I'm set up, like I have so much to say, let's fire up as fast as possible for the podcast. So I have no idea how this is going to shake out. We'll see how it goes. For those of you new to our podcast, welcome. Those of you new to this kind of Patreon exclusive version, we do everything in 24 minutes. If we go over our time limit, we get punished. That's just like the gist of it. You can become a patron for just a few bucks a month and watch our episodes. We've been breaking down Mission Impossible, like you said, Ben. And we've had 2 punishments so far of some extremely hot sauces that have been nothing short of quite hysterical on this show. So, it comes with a price, and we have to be smart. And I just don't know how this is going to shake. But I'd love to see you get the hiccups again for 20 minutes of a 24-minute podcast.
That was awful. I could not talk for the entire episode. It was awful. I do not want to do that again.
Oh man, we will see. We will see. Yes. So let's talk about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Returning stars. Tom Cruise. Obviously we've got Christopher McQuarrie returning as well. But along with Tom Cruise, we've got the company, we've got the standard crew. Henry Czerny as Kittredge is returning, which is just an incredible addition. I know that we're going to want to talk about that. We've got some additional newcomers as well. We've got Haley Atwell, Pom Klementieff, and as Esai Morales. Longest franchise installment to date. An audacious, truly audacious 2 hours and 43 minutes. We're breaching 3 hours, and I want to put a pin in that just briefly, so we can circle back and say maybe Part 2 is over 3 hours. We will see. Features the famed cliff motorcycle jump that's been promoted for like months and months and months. And hopefully, the behind the scenes has been everywhere. So people are excited. And a reported budget of apparently $290 million, which is just brain boggling.
Is that just for Part 1?
Just for Part 1. That's what the Wikipedia says. Look, I'm just going off the information available.
If it's on the internet, it's true.
But who knows? The entity could have changed that information. Could have changed that data.
Very true.
Who knows? True. So before we get into details, before we break this movie down a little bit more, Ben, wide thoughts. What did you think of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1?
I had fun. I had a good time.
Okay.
I think I felt the runtime a little bit.
Interesting.
This is, I don't know what I expected. I tried not to have any expectations, as we've discussed on here. If anyone goes back and listens to our Beau is Afraid episode, my expectations have let me down in the past. So I tried not to have any, even though this is arguably my favorite franchise of all time. Like, I love these so much. This one, I don't know. man, some of the dialogue, like some of the exposition was like just rough, man. Like they were really just spoon feeding it to us. It's like, you guys, we don't really care
Open
about all
up.
this, you know. It's just like we don't need to explain everything. There's the first scene that we get with Carrie Elwes, from Princess Bride, when everyone's explaining stuff to him, and I kept thinking, I don't know if you're familiar with John Mulaney, but like his stand up when he's talking about how like Ice-T on SVU, even though he works like in the sex crimes division, every time he hears about something, it's like the first time he's like, wait, so you're telling me this guy gets off on little girls with pigtails? It's like, yeah, you work in the sexual victims. And it kind of felt like this, because all these people are like, yeah, so we have these guys and they do this stuff like when no one else can do it. And he's like, okay, hold on. So you're telling me we've got these guys that will do stuff with no one.
I loved this part.
Yeah, man. Like you're just repeating what we're telling you. Like, yes, this is all true. You know, like I get he's learning it for the first time, but there's a lot of this kind of dialogue where it's like, we could honestly, I feel like, have cut 20 minutes out of this movie just by like not treating the audience like they're dumb. It's like, just like, let's go. Like, let's keep moving. But the action sequences, like the set pieces, were awesome. I was a little disappointed. I'm sure you may have had the same thing. But before the movie starts, like, here's a special sneak peek at Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Oh my God.
Like,
just start the movie.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sitting here to watch this. Like, you don't need to like sell me. I'm literally here. And then they go on to talk about like the Rome sequence. Did you get this in your theater? Did you have all this?
Yeah, so you mentioned at the top, this was my second time seeing it. I was able to see it last week as part of like an early screening, and they showed it then too. So I've seen both of these like little featurettes twice, and tonight at my screening, during the first one, they're like, now for a special, sneak peek at Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, someone literally yelled as loud as possible, "Why?" And I was just like, I feel you, brother. I got you.
Exactly. That was internally what I was doing. It's like, we're here. You don't need to sell us. This is not the demographic that needs the behind the scenes. Like, if you want to do it after the movie. You're not giving us a teaser for part 2, so give us some behind the scenes shit. But it bummed me out because like then when the sequence played in the movie, like some of those things that could have been kind of fun reveals, like the little Fiat 500, like that was funny, but it was funny when I saw it before the movie, and then it played in the movie. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I know this is like his car, like the fact they're handcuffed together, like some stuff that could have been great reveals. This doesn't have to do with the movie in particular, but just like, you guys, this is not, you don't need to be showing us this. And like you said, that motorcycle jump, I feel like I've seen that for the last 10 years of my life. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's just such a bummer because there's stuff like that where then it's just like, I dare say unimpressive. You know what I mean? Like it is impressive. And I know it's a feat, but it's just like, I've been watching this for the last 6 months of my life. Like it's hard. It's nice on seeing on the big screen, but it's like, okay, like we got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always like to ask the question in those types of scenes. And, I think it's interesting, especially today, because, today, like the day we are recording, a bunch of Deadpool 3 set photos like leaked and came out, and like a bunch of stuff of like, oh my God, these things are happening in the movie. I wonder if, and I do think it's just a modern day Hollywood problem of just like, they're just so amped up on their own Kool-Aid that they just have to show people all the time what is coming. And like you said, kind of spoon feed people of like, hey, here's why you should come see the movie, not just because it's Mission Impossible, but because we're doing a cliff jump. And it's like, I get it. That's super incredible. And I loved like the 15-minute featurette the first 3 times that I saw it. Yeah. But could you imagine going into your screening and watching this movie, getting to the third act, getting 2 hours into this movie, 2 hours and 10 minutes in this movie, and then you see Tom Cruise jump off of a cliff and pull a parachute out of nowhere, and you're just like, holy fuck, he just did that. Like, imagine how much power that would have if that was the first time you saw it, right? And I think that you lose a lot of that magic. And I do think it's unfortunate. I still thought it was pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to say like it wasn't cool. It was cool. It's impressive, but I secretly was kind of hoping he was going to go the Rogue Nation route, like, because they promoted the shit out of him hanging on the side of a plane, understandably. Like, that's insane. But then Rogue Nation is like, cool, we're going to give it to you in the first 10 minutes and then we're done. It's like, oh, great, awesome. Everything else is new to me. Whereas this, it's like, oh, this is really going to be like the Act 3 pinnacle thing. And we've seen this on TV now for months. Like, okay, it's cool. I kind of hope they'd gone Rogue Nation route. I'm not a screenwriter. Obviously, like they know what they're doing. They're going to make $1 billion and deservedly so. And I feel like part 2 is going to be even crazier, which is great. But yeah, I mean, we'll get into some stuff later. I have some qualms about some casting and things like that. But
fascinating.
Overall, it was good. But I hesitate to say like this might just be above Mission Impossible 2 for me. Like,
whoa,
this might fall at number 6 on my rankings, honestly. Like,
I'm taken aback now. I'm startled.
Yeah, I think it's gonna fall right in between like Rogue Nation and number 2. I believe those are my last 2 spots. I think this might fall there.
I was startled at the first sentence, and then you said Rogue Nation is also at the bottom of your list, and I'm breathless right now. My soul sucked from my body.
I can be true to myself. Only one of these movies has Philip Seymour Hoffman in it, and only one of them has the Burj Khalifa, and those are my 1 and 2.
Woof. Wow. Okay. Well, I love your take and I respect your take. Like I said, this was my second time seeing it. I'll start out kind of on a similar note as you. I do think the biggest downfall of the movie is the spoon-fed dialogue. We understand the MacGuffin and the key, which I think is a very cool concept and a great MacGuffin. We're told it like literally five different times of like why you need this key and what it accesses and the entity and this AI that's gone rogue. And I like the pieces. It just maybe plays better if you do it like twice and then you just let it play out and then you just like do the thing. So I think that is probably my biggest issue. I did not feel the runtime necessarily. I thought it felt pretty fast, and for me, each act, basically like at the end of each act, felt like the end of a movie, especially like the first act when we're running through the airport and the score is just like soaring and and my heart was like pounding. It felt like, okay, 4 installments ago, this would have been the end. Like this is the high stakes, which I think is pretty impressive that we've brought that to like the first act of a nearly 3-hour movie and managed to like keep that pace throughout. I liked the newcomers. I thought Haley Atwell was pretty good. I think her character was a little underserved and she could have done a bit more, and fingers crossed in part 2 we see some kind of more action out of her. But I did like it overall. I think that this score, and I don't know if it's because it's the first Mission Impossible I've seen in theaters. I don't know if it's because I saw it in IMAX. Like, I don't know if it's just pure recency bias, but I'm going to stand by it. This score is the best out of any single movie. It is consistently, determining the tone and the pace that I felt for the movie. And it was just soaring, and I loved every second of it. I think there's some really great moments. On the second viewing, you do lose a little bit of that element of surprise, of course. Like, the same goes for Rogue Nation. The same goes for Fallout, right? When you get moments like we've talked about, like, in the beginning when, it's all a ploy and they drop the walls and you're like, oh my God, they were interrogating him. Once you see that once, you see it, you understand it, right? So this does fall into a similar pitfall, but I loved it. I thought it was a really great time. It is on the other side of my ranking compared to you. So nice. we will get into the rankings here at the end. We've kind of saved our power rankings for this episode. We haven't talked about where we really rank them at all. And, true to the podcast style, we try not to talk off mic about Mission Impossible things. Yeah. So I like that we're going to keep it fresh. You mentioned the runtime. How do you feel about it being a part 1? Do you have a problem with it being part of a more grandiose story, or does that work for you? Because we spent 3 hours getting a key. That's like literally the simplest way to put it. We just have a key now. That's what we've achieved.
It's a long runtime. Like, I guess I don't necessarily care if it's like a part 1, part 2. Like, if it's done well, that can work. But like you said, we heard what this thing was like 5 times. And we kicked off this episode with you reading the tagline from IMDb, which could qualify for almost every single one of these movies. Like, Ethan Hunt and his team must get something that could fall in the wrong hands. Like, and that's it. That's what the audience needs. Like, cool, this thing's like a supercomputer. Got it. But like, we don't need to explain it 5 times. So yeah, I don't know. It was interesting that it's a part 1. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to happen, but how would you feel if Haley Atwell became the new Ethan Hunt? What if she takes over?
I got no problem. I'm pro. I think that's great. I do foresee something like that potentially taking place with a very, key exposition moment in the third act to really start it up of like, hey, we're all here by choice. And we are going to get into spoiler territory, just FYI. Like, we're going to start spoiling.
Yeah.
So now would be the time. If you haven't seen this movie, you don't want to be spoiled to certain sections, go ahead and pause, save it for later, whatever you want to do.
Less than 9 minutes left.
I
started talking about scenes.
Timer's out. Timer's out the window, dude. It's gone. It's off the cliff. We're getting a punishment next week. So tune into the Patreon and subscribe so you can see us just burn our mouths on the pod. But I think there's a very obviously a key expositional piece with her understanding the choice, and I liked that a lot. I want to save that conversation for when we go through the movie. I think she would make a great Ethan Hunt. I think that's fun. I think she's got both ends of the spectrum. She's got the human emotion, but she also has kind of the laser focus of getting something done and trying to do something. And with this, her being her introduction, I think there's a lot of room for character growth. And I think there's a lot of things that you could do. I like that it's...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
I would say, unlike Benji, she has like the fighting skills. Like, we've seen her have those abilities, which is great. So she just has to learn like the IMF stuff. Whereas Benji kind of knows all that, but it's like once he's in the field, he's kind of useless because he doesn't have those fighting skills. So I think that lines her up more along with Ethan and his path.
Right. And she does come from a kind of a similar troubled background, right? She has no other options because she has put herself in this corner, much like Ethan Hunt has. This movie, I'm good with it being a part one. I like that it's a two-parter. I do think Hollywood has a two-part problem going on right now where like everything, like, let's just extend it. I didn't mind it for this. I think it's warranted. I think we just got like some more fun stuff and that kind of constitutes it. But I like that this movie is about an AI that's gone rogue. And there's really two things that I just wanted to call out that I think are at the core of this film that I like and I think keeps it kind of higher up in my rankings. The first being like an AI. I think that's a cool villain. I think part of the reason I like Rogue Nation is because like the concept of the villain is so cool. And I think that's why MI3, I think both of us really enjoy that because Philip Seymour Hoffman is such a unique villain. And so I like this AI that's gone rogue. It's kind of this machine version of Tom Cruise, right? Because it is the antithesis to a degree. It's emotionless and it's very clearly stated in the movie, like, humans are the biggest, weakest link in getting a mission done and a security breach or what have you. So this AI doesn't have that problem, but it went rogue. Ethan goes rogue. That's like what he does to get the mission done the best of his ability. The second thing I wanted to say is that this movie is such an homage to MI1. It is got that Brian De Palma like kind of essence riddled throughout it. You've got very close facial close-ups. You've got that kind of tilted frame of reference. You get these really neat split diopter shots throughout the entire movie. And I loved that. And thematically, it tackles Ethan Hunt and why he does what he does and how he is at his core a human being and how he cares for others regardless if he knows them or does not know them. So I really liked that aspect of it. I think it played well and evolved kind of that Ethan Hunt character arc of it. What did you think about, kind of this coming to grips with being a person kind of a thing?
I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting. I think AI can get used poorly, and this was kind of on the verge of that. Little sneak peek to future Patreon episodes. We might be talking about some other AI stuff later on. So,
yes, sir.
I don't know. I think it was all right. I don't really know. I guess that was my issue with this movie. I think was the villain was
interesting.
I forget the dude's name already. I can't believe it.
Damien.
Gabriel. Yeah.
Oh, Gabriel. Yes.
Gabriel. Yeah. My issue was kind of with him, unfortunately. And I couldn't for a long time really put together. It's like, okay, so where does the entity come from? Like, is he...
I was going to ask you this. I want to know your take because there's a very clear scene where he is unlocked from basically a coffin and he has a super fucking sick mask on.
Yeah.
That's like the eye of the AI. And so I assume it's like feeding his brain, but like where does Gabriel the person stop and the AI begin? Like, what is your interpretation of that?
Genuinely no clue. Like I don't know, you know, and I know I was talking earlier about like, we don't care, just like get to it. But there's stuff just like, okay, so how is he invisible in the airport? Like, how is he just like disappearing? I don't understand that. And like, why does he show up in reflections? Like all that stuff I didn't really get. And maybe it just doesn't matter. But I think I also just, this character, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but was originally cast to be Nicholas Hoult. And then they replaced him with a 60-year-old dude. And I'm just like, this works a lot better with Nicholas Hoult, in my opinion. And I'll talk about my reasons why later. But that makes it more interesting to me because maybe a younger person to me seems more like tech savvy, more into the AI, more that kind of shit. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I could see this guy being some like master manipulator. But Gabriel's like, did he just like fall into the wrong place? And now he's like part of it. I don't really know. Obviously, like the movie was fine without it, but unfortunately, part of me watching is just sitting there is like, okay, what's going on?
So if in part 2, if we get resolution to a lot of these questions, if we see a similar runtime for a part 2 or even a 3-hour runtime, and we get a background on Gabriel, we understand more about Ethan and how he became part of the IMF and how he was given the choice. And if we get more closure on these topics, do you think that will help your kind of enjoyment of part 1? Because I do feel in a certain fashion they're withholding information until part 2.
I mean, it might, but the track record for part 1s and part 2s hasn't really shown that for me. Like in my history, it's just like Deathly Hallows part 1 is like not awesome, but part 2 is rad.
Wow, bad take.
I mean, it's a right take, but like it's fine, but it's just like part 2 being great doesn't make part 1 better for me. Like part 1 is still just like fucking slow as shit, you know? So it's just like, okay. So maybe.
But you had to spend 2.5 hours learning about the Deathly Hallows, Ben. It couldn't be done in 2 minutes.
I mean, I read the fucking books. Come on, speed it up, you know? So, I mean, maybe it'll make me appreciate things a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to like bump it up in the rankings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I think I'm keeping an open mind. Of course, we're going to have to wait a year or maybe more for Dead Reckoning Part 2. We'll see what that entails. I don't think we have anything like that.
Right now, it's like June 28th next year, supposedly.
Oh, that's a wait. That's a long wait. We're talking like a year and a couple of weeks. That's tough. I ever since I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and we got was that where we got a trailer for something after the credits? Or was it maybe it was like the MCU movie before that we got a trailer for Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, there was just a trailer for Multiverse of Madness, which we had already seen online. There's just a trailer. Yeah. So but there was an MCU movie that dropped the trailer. So now every time we get like a part 1 or like some kind of franchise installment, I'm like, you know what I would really like at the end? A little teaser for the next thing. Like that's what I thought we were gonna get. I was hopeful.
I think that would play so well. And it's kind of a nice meet in the middle to like this post-credit pandemic that we're going through right now, which I just think is absolute horseshit, and we just need to like stop it. But that would have been fun to get like a little, like even like I love like sick voiceovers or something. Like even to hear, Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt like say like scream something at Benji, or like like where he's in a lot of distress, where you're just like, holy shit, like part 2, we're glimpsing death or something, right? I think that would have been fun.
Do you think we're going to finish in the next 10 seconds?
So this has been the podcast. This was a great time. Thanks for listening to our breakdown. Bye. I think we should probably get into the movie because we're eating it anyway. We're getting a punishment next week on the Patreon. So don't forget to check that out and subscribe. The timer has reached 0. And look, you did it. You did it for your favorite MI. This is not my favorite, but I'm gonna do it for this one. It's gonna be on me. I will take the hit on that one. Okay, let's get into True Cinema. Since we're over our time, I have written down some things for the movie. Do you mind if we just like kind of roll through the movie and we'll just kind of like gonna see how this pans out? We've got, of course, like I mentioned before, this is complete spoiler territory for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. The opening submarine explosion, we get really the idea of the MI, of the entity and the AI and the keys were kind of introduced.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, I thought it was really fun. I thought it was pretty cool. And I think it's really intriguing when you're initially learning about the AI, because then you're like, whoa, how did the missiles ghost? Or why are the missiles not turning off? Or where did the submarine go? Second time, not as enthralling. I'll be completely honest with you.
Can you explain to me what happened at the beginning?
Yeah.
What the Phantom submarine and missile was that the entity pretending there was something there?
That's the way that I took it. That's the way that I understood it. So the entity had gone rogue in that kind of right before that or soon before that, and basically had planted a submarine on the map for them to shoot a missile at.
Yeah.
And then it disappeared. And basically it was a ghost. There was a phantom in the system, as they say, right? So I think that was the entity doing that, knowing that if it could get the missile rerouted back to the submarine, that was its only chance to survive without human intervention, because apparently it could survive an explosion. I don't really know how that happens, but
that's where it gets me. It's so he's kamikazing himself, or itself. It's not a gendered thing, but you know what I mean? It's
I don't know.
Cool. I'm going to send this missile out, then I'm going to come back and blow up the ship I'm on. Okay.
Maybe, but maybe it can determine that. Maybe it can work through that problem and say well, if it hits here, then I won't be, disbanded or explode with it or something like that. Right. So maybe it was able to figure that out. That's how I understood it.
Cool.
I think it was a fun way to introduce. I do like that the title card didn't come for 30 or 35 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because I always love that. I'm always just that was tight.
I'm into it. Give me a super long intro. I'm all about it.
Yeah. Next we get this kind of Saudi. What is it? Is it Saudi Arabia? I don't think so.
Which part? What are we talking about?
The next part. We've got a desert chase with Ilsa.
It's in Namibia, I believe.
Okay. It's in the desert, and we got some heavy gunfire, and we find Elsa back in the fold. I thought it was fun, really cool. Tom Cruise on a horse in the desert, just badass as ever. Honestly, I think it's great.
I feel like if we really broke this down, we could find hints or nods to all the Mission Impossibles, because this was reminding me of Ghost Protocol, and when he's in the sandstorm, he luckily still has the goggles from climbing.
Oh my God, just an all-time MI franchise moment when he's got the goggles with the suit.
And we kind of get that here. We get the baggage cart, obviously throwing back to Mission Impossible 1. As we talked about this, I'm really curious if there's stuff that we can find from all the Mission Impossibles, because they did it's a lovely tribute to the past movies.
They did. I thought that stuff really worked. I think they molded it to be pretty fresh, and I thought that was fun. Especially for us, it's very rewarding, right? We just spent 6 weeks going through all these movies, so we're just Leo DiCaprioing all of these things of oh, that's from that, that.
Ilsa I can with see the rifle, awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Next one, the agency room. You kind of mentioned this, where we get massive exposition about what the rogue AI is. Little Top Gun Maverick feel to it, which I appreciated. I thought was nice. We get this kind of a gas explosion that happens. Kittredge is in the room, and then someone hands him a really sick fucking mask, to be honest. Cool. Really, really cool. And hits the gas, rips the mask off, ends up being Ethan Hunt. Great reveal. Love the mask in the first 20 minutes. Incredible stuff. I thought it was really funny when, the head of the CIA, whatever, is oh, IMF, International Monetary Fund. That got a really good chuckle out of my audience. Seems like a crowd pleaser, but I thought this scene was pretty cool. And again, kind of put Kittredge and Hunt across from each other, and really got this throwback to MI1 of Kittredge leading off and being Ethan, I'm sure you're mad. And it's yeah, fucking A, dude, you turned him, you twisted him, you ruined him.
Yep. Yeah, no, the exposition aside, it's a really fun scene. I good comedian Rob Delaney's in here playing kind of a serious role, but I thought he was good. And honestly, I love the reveal at the end when Kitcher's like, well, how do you expect to get out of here? You know, like the guys are coming for you. And then we turn around and Ethan Hunt's like got his face on. He's like, oh, of course. You know,
Of
like
course.
it's so good. I thought that was such a good reveal.
Yeah, that was fun. I like that scene quite a bit. Airport run for the key. This is where we meet Grace. Now, I have a question for you about this. So, when Ethan Hunt meets Grace, this is Haley Atwell's character. That's a thief, essentially, and gets brought along on this mission for the key. He says, "What is your name?" And she says, "How about Grace?"
Yeah.
And later on, we see kind of a flashback to her offloading the key on an unsuspecting passenger on the plane. They exchange contact information. I don't know if you got a glance, but when she hands the man's phone back to him, her contact letters in the bubble are FG. It does not start with a G. I wondered if you got the impression that Grace could potentially just be like a stage name, or if that is actually her name, because I feel like it's not her real name.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was her real name at all, you know, and who knows, you know, putting people's numbers in your phone, maybe it was like Flight Grace or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, fair.
Who knows what it got put in as, but I don't think that's her real name. I'd be curious to find it out. But everyone, the White Widow and stuff seemed to address her as Grace though.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they figured that out, you know, but I didn't think it was her real name, but I don't know. It could be.
Who knows? Like I said, maybe that's a part 2 reveal. Maybe she knows things that we're not privy to quite yet. At the same time that we are running through the airport using really cool Luther implemented AI tech on planting Ethan Hunt's face on different people, which is dope. We get this bomb that Benji has to defuse. In true like 24 minutes of not A24 fashion, I'm gonna claim this as one of my true cinema moments.
Okay.
Even the second time I saw it, I just edge of my seat. There's just something about Simon Pegg as Benji that I just like. I magnetized to. I just really love him in field situations like this. And I thought the idea of the bomb was really neat. The AI learning more about him as he answers the question, again, really cool concept. And the fact that he had to answer a very particular question about like, who do you care about most in the world? And he had to say my friends, even though he knew that would mean that the AI would then target his friends. And the pressure that he felt answering that question, I thought was really, really important. And again, I love, very much like Rogue Nation, I love that the timer stops on like a weird random decimal of a second, and we're not like, three total seconds left. But I loved this scene.
I thought it was great. I had it in the running for one of my scenes, specifically, like you said, all the face swap stuff, and how they were able to utilize that. It was fun to send the other cops on just like this chase, you know, it's like, oh, he's over in the E-gates now, whatever. And, you know, as I mentioned on here, I used to work at the airport, so there was part of it too. And Benji goes into like the baggage services area. I was like, oh man, I missed that stuff. That was so cool. Like it was fun to see all that. It's like, there's no way he'd be allowed down there. Like they would escort him out there so fast, but it was fun to like see him just going through luggage and finding tools and stuff. And, you know, we're a couple of Ethans and Benjis ourselves, so it's always fun. I like seeing him down there for sure.
It's true. We are, you know, and the reason that I gravitate so closely towards this franchise and I wanted to see it on the big screen twice is just so I could hear my name on the big screen so many times. Breaking Grace out as the lawyer in in Rome, we moved to Rome. This is great. I did have one question. So by this stage, we've seen Ethan Hunt's pictures displayed prominently several times about like, he has a past and like he was supposed to go to prison and before the IMF, and like that gets told to us 7 times before the hour mark. But I am curious, just I don't know if it's me, I don't know if I'm seeing what I want to see. It looks like Magnolia, Vanilla Sky era Tom Cruise. Like it looks like they stole a headshot from 20 years ago with Tom Cruise and they were like, we're just going to use that. I'm just going to choose to believe it. I don't know if you saw that in the pictures at all.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this felt like, he's growing his hair out for Mission Impossible 2 here. So that's like Vanilla Sky, whatever Cruise, without a doubt. It was a perfect picture.
Yeah, it was great stuff. I love seeing that. I think that was a fun little nod to like,
Yeah.
man, Cruise has been around. He's our guy. He's our
Maybe that's our
journeyman.
Mission Impossible 2 nod. All right, so we got 1,
Yes.
2, and 4. We got the other 3 to knock off.
Here we go. Keep the checklist running. Car chase through Rome. This is a long car chase, like you mentioned. The reveal of this little yellow Fiat that could have had a lot more surprise element. I like the comedy going into the car, and like Hunt trying to figure out how to steer it, and the fact that it just feels like Tom Cruise to me. Like, it just doesn't feel like Ethan Hunt. It just feels like Tom Cruise telling Haley Atwell, like, the way that they make these things, I just never know. And like and at one point when he's driving, he like kind of tail whips into a scooter and he mumbles under his breath. He's like, those scooters. And I just died. I think I was the only person in my theater that laughed, and there was like 100 people there.
Really?
And
I love that.
I thought it was hilarious. So I think a lot of moments in this car chase work for me.
Yeah, I think that felt a lot like Tom Cruise, like you said, because there are moments when they're driving around and he's like, we're okay.
Yeah.
It's like he's telling her, like, it's all right, this is all supposed to be happening, but it fit well in the role. But it's just like, is he telling Haley this, or is he telling Grace this? I can't tell.
Yeah, and in saying that they did all this stuff practical, like, I just kept thinking, like, okay, when I buy this 4K, I'm gonna watch all the featurettes. I'm gonna watch all the behind the scenes, because like, I think it's so fascinating that they do all of these things, and I can't imagine being in a car like that and only driving with one hand while the other is crossed over my body and handcuffed. I don't know, man. Sounds
so cool.
It just sounds so crazy. Next one on the list, the party in Venice. We get this exposition with the White Widow and the crew. This is where we kind of get a big meeting of everybody, and we realize that the keys are in this kind of small circle of possessors, and the entity has really taken over this party and put Gabriel here for a reason. And we, get this idea of how everybody interacts. And then we get people basically running away from the party and splitting and doing their own action. Party was very reminiscent of John Wick 4 for me. I don't know how you felt, but it was fine. I think it's a little exposition heavy. I like the White Widow, and I like this nod to John Locke. Like, I think that's our Fallout nod that we get of like the story does continue.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fine. I think this would be my call out of like where it might feel a little sluggish.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like this could have been a lot tighter. With the Vanessa Kirby, I mean, she's great as always. It was cool to see her and bring the brother back, and even just like the nod between him and Ethan, just like, all right, yeah, you're here. Okay, got it. This was, besides the other scene, with the director of defense, like this was the other exposition scene where I'm like, what is happening right here, you guys? Like, did no one go over this for a second time? Like, I think we can trim a lot of this stuff out. I don't know, and then Gabriel's like, oh, it's like, maybe this is the interested party all along kind of thing. It's like, okay, all right, got it. So it was all right. I like the escape sequence, was kind of cool. But just having them all together, I think, was the most interesting part, because it's just like, we have Ilsa, we have the White Widow, we have, now Grace is there, just like kind of a lot of callbacks and just a cool little get together, I guess. Yeah.
And, I think you could make the argument of a little MI3, reminiscence here of like, you need to choose between one of the ladies. You need to choose how to complete your mission and who you love and like these types of things. What did you think about the fact that like Ethan Hunt's wife, I know we left Fallout and we were with her and then just like never mentioned in this movie. I just want to know how you feel, because I don't know. I'm confounded.
I literally was about to ask you that same question. I was like, was it weird that we didn't see any Michelle Monaghan in this? Like, yeah, because even the flashback, we think about all the women that he's lost. It's like, what about your fucking wife, man? Like, what about the one you married out of these ones that we're seeing here? Like, we don't know who the first one is, because obviously it's like set before Mission Impossible. And then we know who these other two are. And like, you haven't even lost Haley Atwell. Like, she's not dead. Like, she's just like not with you right now, basically. And it's like, he's like going through these flashbacks. I'm like, fucking justice for Michelle Monaghan. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with it. I think that was like my one glaring of like, are we continuing? Is this like a soft reboot? Like, what's the idea here, kind of a thing? But, then again, in the franchise, it's it's been hit or miss. Like, that was the big thing in Fallout, right? Was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, we're back with her. Like, we see her. That's the thing with at the end of Ghost Protocol is like, we get the nod and then we go a couple movie, like, a movie with nothing. So I do think there's leeway there. I really hope in part 2 we hear something about this or it's kind of looped in a little bit.
I'm curious. I know Macquarie said like they wrote that stuff in Fallout to be like the end for Michelle Monaghan's character, so kind of like a goodbye. So they're dumb. So like I get that, but I still think you could have brought her, like done a flashback of her as someone that he's lost, because like that is arguably throughout all 7 of these movies the person that he's had the most connection with, and we don't even like hint at her at all.
And with a movie that's really core focused on Ethan Hunt and his humanity, I think that would have played exceptionally well. It would have added an incredible layer of depth. The fight in the alley where he saves, I believe her name is Paris, Pom Clementie's character, essentially spares her life. He gets out of this really tight alley. Some really cool choreography, some great fighting action. Always cool with a lead pipe. Never going to really beat a lead pipe. So that was pretty sick. And then we get the fight on the bridge. We get Grace starts the fight with Gabriel, and then Ilsa shows up to fight Gabriel as well. And as the movie goes, it does have such a long runtime that you start to wonder, like, where's the key? Like, are we fighting just to fight? Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So this fighting Gabriel was to get the key, right? Like, he had the key, and that's why we were fighting him on the bridge. Because Ilsa fucking dies. Like, that's the spoiler. She dies in this moment, and that's the big loss for Ethan Hunt, because like it was her first time in Venice and it was his first time too, and like they were reunited and like they always found a way back to each other, and she dies. So like, was it worth it?
This was my biggest issue with Gabriel. This is like Ilsa Faust is like the baddest of badasses.
She's
throughout
the
this whole series. And it's like, you're telling me she had a sword in her hand and she lost to a dude in his 60s in a fucking pocket knife. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on. Like, that was the biggest issue for me. And that's where, when I was like looking into it, it's like, oh, this is supposed to be Nicholas Hoult. Like, okay, someone who's younger and maybe in his prime, I could see at least going like toe to toe with Ilsa. But it's like, this dude, the flashbacks from 20 years ago, that's when that guy's in his prime. Like, nothing against people in their 60s. I'm very much
Tom Cruise, he's doing it, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
He's proving the point.
He just doesn't like seem like it, I guess. It's kind of interesting because Gabriel's like, no, this dude isn't like beating people up. Like, he's way too good for what his character is, in my opinion.
Okay, so then here's my follow-up question again. Gabriel is fighting. We know Gabriel on some level has some fighting experience because he does find himself in a position where he has to kill someone in front of Ethan Hunt. So he has skills. Are his skills enhanced in any way by the entity, by the rogue AI? Because initially when Grace shows up, the way he like turns around from peering over the side of the bridge, he turns around like a fucking robot. Like, he moves like squarely. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this guy's the AI. But I don't know. It's not very clear. Like, again, where is that line? I have no clue.
That's the issue. And that's like a movie I love called Upgrade. And it's kind of like this, where the AI kind of takes over this person's body. And it's very clear. It's like, oh, like, he's so much better than he should be, because of this AI. And like, I guess we see hints of it with like him being able to disappear in the airport and things, but it's not clear enough. I don't know. At least it's not made clear enough. It's like, yeah, he can almost like matrix himself into like learning better fighting skills and all that kind of stuff. Like, I just see him. He's like, I don't know. He's like 60. Like, he's not killing Ilsa Faust. Like, this is my problem with this movie. One of my biggest. So I don't know. Maybe if it's the AI, great. But like you said, like, it wasn't made clear enough for me to understand that. Yeah.
Next on the list, explaining the choice to Grace. Now, I really liked this scene. It is one of the more exposition-heavy scenes, but I think it ties together nicely the core themes of the film itself and the idea of the franchise and the idea of Ethan Hunt being a person and choosing this life. We hear from Luther, Benji, and Hunt all about why they live this life, and they were all in similar positions to Grace, and they needed to choose this, and that's how they got out of this. We also get a scene in the very, very beginning with someone new to the IMF where Ethan Hunt is like, welcome to the IMF. You made the right choice. I'm just going to be completely honest right here on the pod. This is a safe space. That made the hairs on my arms stand up. I thought it was the sickest thing. And I think it's like a culmination of like Tom Cruise cinema kind of a thing, right? Where he's just like, welcome to the IMF. You made the right decision. I was just like, fuck yes. Like, I don't know. It just felt like one of those moments. So I like that in the beginning. I like this exposition part where they're explaining to Grace, because it did have that feel of like, maybe we're passing the torch eventually.
I agree with that. But like, we never saw that guy again though, did we?
No, we did not. He was fun though for like the 2 minutes.
No, he was. I wanted to see more of him. That's why I was kind of surprised. Like, I thought he was going to play some sort of role, but maybe we'll see him later on. Maybe he's, the young Avengers. He'll be here for the
in 10 years, we'll realize that was the cameo we all missed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's the food delivery guy. Cool. Here he is. That's that little kid in Iron Man 2. Awesome. That's him. No, I thought it was a very cool scene, like him hiding in the shadows and stuff like that. And also just kind of training him. He's like, no, you got to ask me the
security question.
Security question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect of it for sure.
Yeah. Mask of the White Widow. We enter the third act. This is the big one. Grace kind of masks up as the White Widow. Now, I want to say, I thought this was one of the best like masks sequences that we get because it is noticeably different from Vanessa Kirby's White Widow, and it is an incredible mixture of Hayley Atwell's Grace and the White Widow. Her cheeks look a little fuller, her eyes are brown. She has that different attitude about her, but really the only tech that we get in this movie are masks, the voice modulator, of course, and the gas masks, right? Like, you don't really see a lot of tech in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the airport, we see those glasses that can like pick up on the key.
Oh, that's true. And the lighter, I guess, right? We get the lighter.
Yeah, but it's subtle. There's a lot of like smaller things in here. So yeah, it was cool to see the mask, and as tried and true from all the Mission Impossibles, like the mask thing like not working. Breaks. It's like, okay, cool. And that's, I mean, what's that a throwback to like 4 and I don't know, a few of them. I guess it's happened a couple times. So
just dangling from the fucking Burj, and he's like, nope, we're not gonna have a mask for the next part of this mission.
I thought that was really good. I think that's some of my favorite stuff, and I think that's why a movie like Face Off works so well, because it's fun to see an actor try to play themselves as someone else would play them. Yeah, because like Vanessa Kirby's like, okay, Hayley Atwell's like Grace would be doing this. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool to see that. I mean, I'm a sucker for that stuff. That works every time for me. So I was super into this whole segment.
It is really fun, and it's pretty prolonged, which I like. It's not like a very fast, quick switch in, switch out kind of a thing. It works continuously. We get a big, kind of the big reveal. Kittredge is the buyer of the key. Then we get like the leader guy is the only person in the world who knows where the like submersible is. Yeah. Just fucking slashed by Gabriel. Just goes ham on him, and then get some interesting fight stuff. I mean, I like that idea, but it's fun. Like, I think you just have to like buy into it. I think you just have to like kind of like leave it at the door and just be like, yeah, okay. Like Kittredge is buying the key. Like of course the US with our industrial military complex, like we want the key, we want the power. I get it. It is a great meta commentary. The mountain jump, we briefly talked about the mountain jump. It's crazy as shit, but like it's, it is what it is.
Yeah, I just like, I want this as like the DVD, like when there's the Blu-rays are going on sale, then show me all the shit that went into like making this, like, you guys remember you saw this scene, like we're going to show you how we did it all. But instead of like 6 months ago, a year ago, it's like, hey guys, you have this to look forward to once we finally see it. Like, and again, the first few times it's astounding, it's like, it's super cool. But unfortunately for me anyway, like seeing it then like on the big screen was cool, but also it's just like fell a little flat. I'm like, okay, yes, I've seen this. Like, cool. What's next? It is
such a grandiose build up to it as well, of like Benji having to redirect Hunt, and like they miss the train, and it's long. It's very long to like get to that stage. So I do think it deflates it a little bit when you get there, and it kind of sucks a little bit of that air out. Fighting Gabriel on top of the train. I like that Hunt like nicked his throat and like drew a little bit of blood. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But you know, again, I do think it's an important storytelling moment for Hunt as a character to make the human choice to not kill Gabriel and to understand the consequences of that. What did you think about the kind of the hitmen, the Secret Service guys, the Michael Douglas wannabe that's coming for Hunt, and that really kind of creates the race for the key, if you will?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess we needed them to some extent to move some stuff forward, but like, why didn't you shoot him in Rome or like, take him in like,
or shoot him on top of the train?
Yeah. Or on top, like, there's so many places it could have been. And then like, did Hunt save their lives by like knocking them down when those things are passing over? And so then it was like, all right, I guess we'll let him go. Like this weird trade off that they keep doing. So I don't know. It was like one of the weaker storylines, I guess, out of this for me. But I like the actors. Like they were fun to be with.
Yeah, they were fun. I believe one of them is from Top Gun Maverick, which is really, really cool to see back with Tom Cruise. And, they do share a little interesting conversation on the train about the key and all that power for one person. So I think there's a lot more to be explored with them in part 2. I assume they'll be around, but maybe now that the key is firmly in the IMF's hands, maybe they're kind of out of this.
Yeah.
2 more things to mention: the train hopping at the very end. What did you think of this stunt scene? Because train cars just keep falling off the bridge and they just keep going, and another one and another one, and they just keep jumping through train cars. It's pretty dope.
I thought it was great. Shout out to our friend Flynn Slicker from Letterboxd, because while she didn't do this interview, Christopher McQuarrie did an interview with Letterboxd, and whoever it was that was talking to him talked about the silent movie era, and specifically like Buster Keaton in The General, and just how much like similarity or tribute there was. And McQuarrie was like, oh yeah, that's like a huge influence on this. And you see that if you see in The General, where it's just like the train bridge collapsing, just like the physical gags and stuff that he has to go through to keep the train functioning. And we kind of get that here. There's a lot of physical gags here of just like having to jump to the other side, not necessarily for humor, but just like, running up and jumping off, and then the train falls down or the cabin falls down, whatever.
Yeah.
But this whole segment got probably the biggest reaction out of our whole audience. Like everyone was like super on board with it, and I thought it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, every time a new train car fell, and then like the camera would pan to them in the next train car.
Yeah.
People next to me, there was like had to be like 65 or 70-year-old woman next to me, and she was just like, oh my God. Every time. And I was just like, I feel that so powerfully. It was rad. Last one I wanted to mention, the Kittredge voiceover at the very end. We have the key. And again, I think it works very well to close out. I just think Kittredge, like as a voice, is synonymous with Mission Impossible. I think there's something about him. He brings a certain energy, and the way that he speaks about the missions and the IMF. So when we get this, about like, you have a key, this is just the beginning. You've only bought Grace more time. Things leading into a part 2. I enjoyed quite heavily. I thought it was a great way to end the movie. That's the movie, man. That's the whole shebang.
If I have to pick one true cinema out of this, it's one of the longest sequences, but it's the Rome car chase. Like, they did such a good job with that from the beginning of her driving, and then like all 4 doors coming off, to, having to swap the cars and constantly just like running into shit. Like there's so much car restarting in this movie. Like every time they would stall out, it's like, if we had to take a shot for every one of those, like we'd just be just drunk, like it just happens so much. But I love Palm's car, Paris, like her big Humvee type thing. Just like,
she was just rampaging in that thing, dude. I love the inside shots of her.
She's doing like GTA in real life. She's like, fuck this, like I'm driving through this, here we go. It was great. So I love that whole sequence. Like I said, I wish they had reserved some of the reveals that we got in that like preview thing. Like I didn't realize they were handcuffed together. Like getting that little yellow car would have been a whole lot funnier if I hadn't seen it, an hour earlier. But overall, it's still like the best sequence for me in this entire movie.
How did he get out of the car when the subway hit him? So they back into this tunnel, and Haley Atwell's character gets out. She runs away. She picks the lock. He is still handcuffed to the steering wheel, and the subway train comes and hits the car, and he manages to bounce out. How did he do it, Ben? Because I don't know, and this is probably the one moment where I'm just like, that even strains a little bit for me of like Mission Impossible, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I get in theory like he pulled the steering wheel out, you know, so he could get out of the car. Like he pulled it
okay.
off
I'm just an idiot then. I just didn't think of that.
But I mean, the amount of time that's given, it does not seem reasonable. Like it feels like it's like less than 2 seconds when we see him like shaking the steering wheel, and then it's like a second later the thing hits it. So it's like there's no way he actually like got out.
Whatever, I am so stupid because I thought when he was, I can't believe I'm going to admit this on the show. When he was shaking the wheel, I was like, dude, you're not going to move the car. Like the car weighs a lot of weight. Right? Like you're not going to scoot it forward.
Like he's trying to like reverse it or something like that. Like for sure. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. That checks out. Maybe the car, when it was built, maybe that's one of the things they were like, quick release steering wheel, you know?
If we have any car experts listening, let us know about the Fiat 500. Yeah.
What did the IMF do to it? I'm going with the Benji bomb. That's like my favorite part. I mentioned a few of the other parts that I did enjoy. I think the movie as a whole is really fun. It works for me. But again, like I said, like there's just something about Benji when he gets put in the field in these situations with Hunt, and you know, we see Hunt's distress and like the reality of like, you guys didn't involve me, and truthfully, I could have saved the day. I could have helped you, but now it falls on your shoulders. And you know, we get a little interesting dynamic between Benji and Luther, which I think is always fun as well. I love them joking around. Okay, we want to do power rankings before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
Okay, power rankings it is. Let me pull up my Letterboxd here. So I have a Letterboxd list where I have all of these ranks, so you can see them publicly. Follow me on Letterboxd at Ethan Simi. I wrote a pretty good review of Tenet, better than yours, Ben, I will say.
I mean, it's probably true for every review.
I love your Tenet review, by the way. Real quick sidebar. It was great. It was just awesome. You were just like, I don't get it, but here are the things that I liked.
Yeah, I mean, that sums up Tenet pretty well, I think.
It was great. Okay, we're starting at 7, right? I think we can both agree on number 7.
Yeah, Mission Impossible 2.
Mission Impossible 2. Had to be. Okay. My number 6 is Mission Impossible, the first one.
Okay. My number 6, these are going to go back and forth. I think I need to sit on it some more, but right now it is Dead Reckoning Part 1. That is in 6th place for me.
That's mania. That's madness.
It could be Rogue Nation. It might be Rogue Nation.
Again.
I don't know. We'll see.
Bad take. That's just bad beat all the way around.
Hey, you know, whatever.
live your truth, Ben. You're the one that has to go to bed with that on your conscience.
So yeah, I guess number 5 would be Rogue Nation, maybe Dead Reckoning. Ask me. It'll change every day, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do a weekly check-in here on the Patreon and see how you feel with your power rankings. Number 5 for me is Ghost Protocol. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Which I know is pretty high on your list, right?
Yeah, number 1. That's what breaks my heart right there.
This is fascinating. I didn't know we varied so much, and I'm curious if a lot of this for me is like it's my first time through the franchise, so I'm just like running and gunning with my very first reactions, and I place them and I don't really think about them. You know, I try to just go off my gut.
Yeah, and that's understandable. And like I said, when we talked about Ghost Protocol, like I know it's not the best one, but it was my favorite theater experience of all of these movies. So that's why it's my favorite, without a doubt. So number 4 for me is the OG. It's the original Mission Impossible. That's what takes my 4th spot.
I love that. It's still to this day, you know, hanging on the wall or hanging off the ceiling, and getting a split diopter shot with a rat in the background is pretty high cinema stuff, to be honest.
Baby. De Palma. And we killed the whole fucking cast in the first 20 minutes.
That's
His
pretty
team
cool.
is gone.
And
they're all dead, Claire. They're all dead. Come on.
The disc is in the open.
Yeah.
I wish we got a montage.
Fucking magic tricks on this one. We got
let's talk magic tricks real quick. Loved the magic tricks. Incredible stuff.
We got some with Haley too.
Great comedy moment, but also great homage of like, oh my God, he actually does know magic. That's great.
Yeah, so good. I love
that. Okay, so number 4 for me is Mission Impossible 3, which has the potential to elevate. It hurts me a little bit that it's at number 4, because, and if you go back and listen, you'll understand, we both love MI3. Philip Seymour Hoffman is special. He is special as a villain, and there's some really incredible moments in MI3. So, I don't know, TBD, but right now, number 4.
Fair enough. Number 3 for me is what I think is objectively the best Mission Impossible movie. It is Mission Impossible Fallout. We get Cavill reloading those arms, you know, like I could just watch that on loop. Yeah, you got to do it. Yeah, objectively, it's the best Mission Impossible movie for sure. Mission Impossible Fallout.
Look at that. We agree. Mission Impossible Fallout is number 3 for me as well.
Hell yeah. I like that.
I love Fallout. It is Fallout. Okay, you're going to have to remind me. Is Fallout the one that starts with the scene that I just like lost my mind at? Or is that Ghost, or is that Rogue Nation? It's got to be Fallout.
Yeah, I say Rogue Nation, the opening scene is him on the plane.
Okay, right. Yeah, so Fallout is the opening scene where they're doing like the throwback to MI1, right? Where like we get the reveal of it was all a fake and a Wolf Blitzer shows up.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's incredible fucking stuff. That's good.
So good.
Okay, number 2 for you?
Mission Impossible 3. This is still, speaking of openings, this is still my favorite opening because we see Ethan Hunt fucking tied to a chair. He's losing. He is lost. Then we get Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's like, you think I'm joking? Like, I mean, the countdown, like it's just, to me, the openings don't get better than this. And it's not even an action oriented thing. It's just all psychological warfare. And I love it so much. So number 2 for me is Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah. We've implanted a bomb in your head. Fucking coldest opening line of a villain of all time.
Right? It's so good.
Unbelievable.
So good.
Number 2 for me is Dead Reckoning Part 1. I think a lot of that is attributed to my first Mission Impossible theater experience. Like I said, I've seen it twice now. I love it. I think it's one of the best movies of the year, one of my favorite movies of the year, I guess I should clarify. And I love it. I love the elevated action sequences. It ups the ante a little bit. And again, like, seeing something like that happen on the big screen, I just think about like Fallout, or I think about like MI3, where it's just like, fuck, if I would have seen that in the theaters, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
Like, so it was fun, and I think that plays a lot into it for me.
I love it. Also, I'm going to lock it in right now. Dead Reckoning Part 1, number 6.
Wow.
Because it does not have Sean Harris, and he deserves to be higher than this movie. He's such a good villain, such a good villain.
He is a good villain.
But what deserves the number 1 spot for me, I already mentioned it, Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible 4, Burj Khalifa, that whole sequence is still just like one of the absolute best. But yeah, I don't know. I love it.
I love that. I love that sequence. I think it's great. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is number 1 for me. That is my favorite Mission Impossible movie. I love so many aspects about it, but most importantly, this is like where we get the Syndicate. Like, I think the Syndicate is awesome. I remember watching that opening scene and then talking to you about it and just being like, the message was tapped by the Syndicate. Like, I lost my mind.
So good.
And I still just can't believe it. That's still like one of the coolest things for me. And it's insane that like 5 installments in, this franchise can still trick me. Like I said, I don't know, my car take earlier, maybe I'm just an idiot, so I don't know. But I'm having a good time with Mission Impossible.
That's what it's here for. It's here to have a good time. So I'm excited for part 2. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. We are 24 minutes of not A24 right now, so would this fit into the A24 catalog? Hard no for me.
No, I think ever since 4, we've been out. Like, there's just no way. Budget alone, none of these like would qualify.
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be an interesting stat. What is like the entire budget of A24's entire film library, and see if it's more or less than one Mission Impossible film.
$290 million for this movie? Like, that's crazy.
It's a lot of money. I'm very curious to see what opening weekend is going to be for this movie, both domestically and internationally. Yeah. That'll be interesting. Any other closing thoughts on Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1? We have gone over 24 minutes, like threefold now. So we just sent it.
I'm not looking forward to whatever this next punishment is, but I'm excited for the comments for me ranking this 6th in my Mission Impossible rankings. I'm sure there's going to be some thoughts on that. But I welcome it. I love a discussion. I love a movie discussion. So yeah, I don't know. It was fun. It was great to see another Mission Impossible in the theater.
Yeah, it was really fun. That it was so awesome to see a Mission Impossible in the theater. And great experience overall. I think it's a really, really fun movie, and it's just amazing to see Tom Cruise back on the big screen, just like owning another summer. I think that's pretty incredible stuff. Next week on the Patreon pod, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Drink up, me hearties, yo ho. We're switching gears because we've reached the end of the Mission Impossible road. And now I have chosen truly, really a first course in the kind of 5-course meal of Disney theme park ride inspired films. We're kicking it off with the OG 20-year-old Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. Arg.
But you have heard of me, That's like, it's so good. I'm excited.
It's going to be fun. That'll be a fun thing. So stick around on the Patreon. Like I said, subscribe to us. Support would be incredible. But yeah, it's going to be a fun run of movies coming up here on the Patreon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I don't know. We haven't really discussed this. Isn't necessarily like a hard set rule, but I think a lot of these we're going to try to tie to new releases. So we will be covering the new Haunted Mansion as well, which I think is going to be kind of fun. Some other movies I haven't even heard of, but I'm super stoked to dig into it. So, but everyone in the world has heard of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I can't imagine anyone who hasn't, but we want to know what you guys thought about it. You've listened to us talk about it now for an hour. We've gone well over our 24 minutes. So let us know what you guys thought about Dead Reckoning. Where does it fall into your rankings? We got 7 spots here. So where does it fall in there? Let us know. We are on Twitter and Instagram at 24 minutes of A24. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well. You can watch our beautiful faces talk about this. You can watch us next week or the week after, deal with this punishment.
Yep. I think it's going to be the week after. We've pre-recorded the Pirates pod, so stick around for a couple of weeks. It'll be a fun punishment.
We're either hot saucing our way into some hiccups or, we might be drinking our way into some hiccups. Who knows? Ooh, we'll see. So
anything's possible.
Yeah, we will see. Thanks again to everyone for your support on the Patreon. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. And for one final last time, it's not mission difficult. It's Mission Impossible.
See ya.